Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to talk about the Knicks versus the Rockets. They're two very good teams that I think are going to have a good chance in the playoffs, and there's a good chance they face each other again. We're going to discuss what went down in this game and how ultimately the game leading up to the last 4 minutes told us essentially what was going to happen in the last 4 minutes and how that predicted what the end was going to look like. Let's go. First thing we're going to start with is the Knicks on offense. So the Rockets like to play small on defense, which means that Cat is theoretically going to have a lot of size advantage. The Knicks went to this early, trying to get him the ball to the inside with good post position and allow him to finish over smaller defenders. Whenever the Knicks were able to get this kind of opportunity, they looked forward to it if they could get Cat anything near the rim and allow him a couple steps without help coming downhill. That was a win for the Knicks. But not only is Cat simply a big body, he's also extremely athletic. So if you give him the opportunity with him driving versus a smaller defender, like we saw that switch right there, that is what the Knicks are looking for essentially. And because they switched, you have a smaller defender. And so Cat was able to use his body on the drive to get another great look. So then one of the things the Rockets did on defense to counteract this, to make sure Cat didn't have opportunities, is when he had smaller players on him, especially when you don't have a big in the game, they doubled. They doubled, especially off of Josh Hart's clear here because he's the worst shooter on the floor for the Knicks. And so this forced the Knicks to kind of go into scramble mode-ish. And they do a great job, frankly, on this ball gets kicked out. You see McBride cut to the middle because that offloads and essentially puts 3-on-2 over here while the defense is still recovering. Get the ball to the middle. Great pass by the Knicks. Means you have opportunity right here. Or maybe if you have opportunity just going up with this cut. However, McBride does a good job staying calm, patient, and when help comes down, which I don't think it should have, I don't entirely know why one decided to come down here, but he did, and that left New York open on the perimeter, and the Knicks are able to hit a clean look at a three. But for the most part, doubling Cat down in the post did actually an effective job of limiting him and preventing New York from going from the inside very often, because it just caused a little bit of chaos. The Rockets are athletic, and if you can get it kind of turnover right there in transition, this feeds into exactly what the Rockets want. The Rockets want to push the ball in transition. We're going to get into that as our second area, and they do that extremely well. You give them space, you give them the ability to get downhill. They are quite often going to punish you, and they did in this possession. I personally think this is the Rockets' biggest strength. They have 5 players who can just get up and go, and several that can attack immediately, let alone if somebody leaks out slightly behind Cat or whoever the farthest defender is. Again, missed shot are always dangerous. Get the ball out ahead. Somebody gets a hand on it, even if it's a little bit chaos. The threat of going downhill puts so much strain on the defense, and because Dillon Brooks in particular is their best shooter, if you sag off to try and prevent the paint because you're worried about drives, worried about cuts, it gives openings on the outside, and that is not a threat that you want to give up to Dillon Brooks. And I love that the Rockets are embracing this. They know what their strengths are, and they're pushing to those. And so you can see as the moment that happens, 2 Knicks players a little bit slow on the attack, but the Rockets are sprinting downhill to convert this advantage of a 4-on-3, and that is extremely difficult to stop athletic buddies like that in transition. Just a few possessions later, the exact same thing. You see a player went down, you see Cat trailing behind, McBride trailing behind, and one-on-one, it is extremely difficult to stop good offensive athletic players. But then let's jump back to the Knicks. And so looking at the Knicks, frankly, their best offensive weapon is going to be Jalen Brunson attacking. One-on-one, he's one of the most lethal because of his ability to get fouled, because of his ability to draw contact and finish through contact. And this is why I really like Cat with the Knicks, because he gives more spacing for Brunson to work with. Because you have no traditional post player, it's extremely difficult for anyone to really provide help. And so if Brunson has a size advantage, has a quickness advantage, has the defender off balance, he is going to work to capitalize on those aggressively. And there's no real questions on the floor about what everyone's role is. And so Jalen Brunson knows that if there's a situation where he needs to go get a basket, he's going to just be able to go attack and get a decent offense, decent efficiency because of that. He gets his body into the defender. I personally don't think this should be a foul call, but I mean, modern NBA is what it is. And then finally we get back to the Rockets, and this is in the half court. They essentially use the same concepts they use in transition. It's just they try and space out the floor as much as they can and drive downhill as much as they can. The only difference here is in transition, you have a little bit more space to work with, so it's easier to attack. But if they get any form of a mismatch or some kind of edge whatsoever, they are definitely going to attack that. And the Rockets attack one-on-one one of the best teams in the league. And so in transition, if you have to match up slightly, you get someone that's slower on a ball handler. The Rockets are going to look to attack that every single time, and that's a tough defensive possession. That's a great offensive possession, though. And then finally, if you do overhelp on a drive, they're not without their other resources. They're able to find difficult passes in tight. This is a very nice pass when Cat helps over slightly to prevent the drive, and he gets the ball to Steven Adams, who's able to finish. And the first thing we're going to look at is we're going to start with the Rockets in these last 4 minutes. So we can see the Rockets, first off, have an edge right now. And so their offense is going to be trying to attack downhill. So we can see the Knicks are already hedging over a little bit, providing slightly more help. But Jalen Brunson does a good job. If you know that they're going to attack downhill, you can try and put your body in position where you don't need to close out aggressively because you know they're not like going to step back for a three out here. You want them to try and go through your body, and he's able to get the charge call right there. Again, second possession about a minute later. The Rockets are essentially trying to create action to get downhill. So one of the big things I like right here is having Dillon Brooks involved in the screen. You know he's the best shooter, so putting him involved in the screen puts a little bit more strain on Jalen Brunson, his defender. Do I help? Do I not help? Because I have to worry about Brooks, and you have Steven Adams also going to be coming downhill. So these three defenders are kind of in a difficult situation for who stays home with Adams, who stays home with Brooks, and getting the ball to the middle does put a little bit of strain on the defense, and it leads to a decent shot. And frankly, even if he doesn't miss that, because Steven Adams is now paired on McBride, a smaller defender, there's a decent chance he's going to get that rebound as well. So even though they missed this, I do like that set from the Rockets. And so then the issue or the question is going to be, defenses are eventually going to send extra help for sure. And so when Josh Hart commits right here, like you're leaving Eason open over here in the corner, and he's decent shooting in the year, but it's extremely low volume and it's 35%. So you still maybe don't completely trust that he's going to make that shot in crunch time. And so that's going to be, I think, the big question for the Rockets and the teams they're playing is whether their perimeter shooters will be able to capitalize when the defense helps off. And so then if you're thinking from the Knicks perspective, you are completely okay with allowing mid-range jump shots, especially contested ones, because that is going to be essentially your best solution because it's going to be less efficient than a layup or a dunk. So this moving to the side, like that's a good look, but it's still lower percentage than him driving downhill. So I don't think the Knicks are terribly upset with this kind of thing of a late closeout in this situation. So then let's revert to the Knicks back on offense. And so, like we said earlier, the Cat attacking mismatches, currently he doesn't have a mismatch, but they're going to switch this ball screen right here. And so that provides a mismatch, and Cat doesn't hesitate, looks to go downhill and attack it immediately. And even though Dillon Brooks is a good defender, he does a good job getting through that contact. And then the other area we had the Knicks try and exploit Houston was through Jalen Brunson, and he continued to do that in these last 4 minutes. Got very efficient shots when he was able to get that one-on-one mismatch because they either trapped or didn't. We're going to get into their traps here in a second, but when he was able to get one-on-one, we can see it's a little late with the trap there. Brunson is able to beat defenders so well using his momentum. And this, a little bit in transition, you don't even call a ball screen because you want Jalen Brunson to be able to attack one-on-one. So he engages the defender, makes it so that you have one of them, and then everyone else essentially spaces out. So Dillon Brooks has to worry about either the cutter or has to worry about closing out to McBride out here, and that gives Brunson room to work one-on-one. And again, he's going to finish that very high efficiency. And then so one thing the Rockets did, especially in the last little bit of the game, was to try and trap Jalen Brunson to get the ball out of his hands, essentially make somebody else beat him. So on that ball screen, they trap right there, which means you're going to have McBride open temporarily, or maybe Hart open temporarily if this defender comes up. This defender is kind of shading in between, so McBride gets it. And so this is going to be the big question, is if defenses do this in like the playoffs, can the Knicks punish them when they have this temporary 3-on-2? We actually saw something very similar with Luka and the Mavs last year when they played, I believe, OKC. And so originally, the defense actually recovered really well, except they had 2 players go down to Cat instead of 1 staying up here. And so that did leave the Knicks to an open shot. And even if he makes or misses it, that's still a good look that you want if you're on offense. Again, Brunson bringing the ball up. We're going to see a trap here momentarily. So as this ball screen, we're looking for what the roller does and how efficiently they handle it. Okay, ball screen happens. That means we're looking for McBride in the middle. Brunson is aware of this as well. Okay, trap goes. So this defender is the one that's tasked with staying in between. So we can see we have 25 and the Knicks that he's trying to guard and number 2 that he's trying to guard. So I like the fact that Bridges comes up a little bit. So Bridges coming up puts more space on the defender when he gambled too far that way. And so if Bridges can attack this, exploit it, then we're looking good for the Knicks. If not, then that's a little bit of trouble. And we don't see anything that comes out of this. So this is unideal. This is definitely encouraging the Rockets to continue to do this if they can force difficult shots based on that. But Bridges does hit a crucial shot that time. And finally, in the last few possessions, Houston frankly needs a stop in this possession. You see the same thing. Okay, so the big issue here is the Knicks, instead of just sending one ball screen, they sent 2 ball screens. And so that's going to put a little more strain on the defense because they don't know which one they're actually trapping. So they kind of start to trap with the Josh Hart one right here. But then Bridges is up there as well. And so they're like, no, we're actually going to trap this one. And they switch it instead. So I think they were slightly confused with what exactly they were trying to do. And Jalen Brunson, because of the threat that he has driving one way or the other, we can see 17's hands are low, and he's still a very, very good shooter. And so if you give him space with no hand up, it is extremely dangerous, and he makes them pay. So the Rockets down 4 here clearly need a quick possession, a quick basket, and the Knicks are showing help downhill, and you get Dillon Brooks, probably not your best driver, but he does get a foul call. And the Knicks here up by 2. If the Knicks get a basket, it's essentially over. If the Rockets get a stop, they're still in the game. We see the ball screen. What's that going to mean? Trap. Okay, that means players open in the middle. We're putting strain essentially on Dillon Brooks, whoever the one shading is. Brunson does a good job stringing it out. However, he's not able to punish us. And so this is something I think defenses are going to look at and going to try and capitalize on because they weren't really able to penalize the trap whatsoever. And so ultimately it is decided that it was off of Jalen Brunson, so the Rockets have the ball. And so what are they going to do? They're going to try and attack. So look at where Jalen Brunson is right now. He's not even worried about the 3. He's giving him 3 feet separation, going downhill, worried about simply contesting the drive. And so this is one of the big things I think is going to be a question for the Rockets is can they shoot those outside jumpers when the defense is almost baiting them into it? Instead, they drive in, and Jalen Brunson is able to get the steal. And so then the Rockets down by 4, very difficult situation. I think personally you got to shoot a quick 3, and that is what they do. And even though the shot doesn't go in, that's still, I think, the right shot. And Steven Adams is able to get the board. And interestingly, he doesn't really look to do the quick putback. Instead, looks to try and pass it out for a 3, which, again, if that's your philosophy, I like it. However, it does result in a jump ball. And this is, I think, this is a slightly odd situation. So I think what Steven Adams is thinking right now is that he's going to win this jump no matter what, and he wants to pass it out to the perimeter immediately. But Dillon Brooks is kind of like, well, like stays on the inside, and this is a clear miscommunication because Steven Adams puts it in the exact right spot if Dillon Brooks had faded out. And then you can see Steven Adams comes over right away and is like talking to him. He said, you said you were going to be there or something like that. And so overall, I think it was a very interesting game from both perspectives. I'd be curious how defenses handle Jalen Brunson doubling or Cat doubling, and if the Knicks can punish that or not. And the Houston Rockets, if they can answer the question of shooting from the outside, what overall was a very entertaining game. If you enjoyed, feel free to like and subscribe, and feel free to check out this video on Cat and his impact with the Knicks. But most importantly, have a blessed rest of your day.